Okay, so I think I've done it right. And hello again. And we're here today to talk about retraining your brain and retraining your mast cells. And I know that sometimes people have participated in different programs about retraining your brain, but that's not what this is about. This is a webinar that's giving information about how our body works at a cellular level, how our brain communicates with our bodies with the specific goal of using these awarenesses and insights and strategies as part of mast cell activation reaction management. So that's what this piece of it is about. So the first parts of it have some information about me. And these PDFs will be available to everybody afterward, emailed to you, so you can linger over it and things and have it, and then you can also be able to download them off of the website. I have MCAS. I have a bunch of other stuff going on too, but I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a nurse. I'm currently in school bumping up my nursing license, and because I specialize with the work that I do in helping people with mast cell disorders. And that's just more information about me. And there's the link to my website. And if anybody ever wants to ask me questions about anything, reach out on the website, I will answer. And so the first part of our journey, this is a roadmap, which is sort of table of contents, what we're going to be talking about. We'll be talking about mast cells in the body, how cells communicate, chemical and physical signaling, which is how, what that's about, and that conversation in our bodies and how plasticity, brain plasticity and mast cell plasticity enter into it, what retraining is, and things that we can do as tools for our toolbox. And if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. And when the presentation is done, I'll turn off the recording, and then we can, as much as I'm able to, I can answer some of the questions. So here's a quote, which kind of sums up what this present talk is about. Habit is habit, and not to be flung out of the window by any man, but coaxed downstairs a step at a time. You cannot eliminate habits that no longer serve you. You can only replace them with new habits that support your goals. Moment by moment, you need to live with awareness and structure the habits that you include or exclude in your days. And that's Mark Twain. I found that one, and it sort of sums up the focus about this. It really is, when you're talking retraining brains and retraining your mast cells, about teaching our bodies new habits. This is just a quickie. Here's here's what mast cells are about. They are white blood cells. They're located in the connective tissue throughout the whole body. They're in every single organ system, including the brain. They're part of our body's immune system and immune response. They're part of the body's inflammatory response, and they're the body's first responders to perceived dangers and threats. Mast cells do a lot. Like, they're the first line of defense against viruses, bacteria, foreign substances, pathogens, our immune response, anything that that the body might sense as a danger or a threat. Mast cells help protect the body against things like bacteria, viruses. It adapts to the specific danger it encounters, regulates blood pressure and heart function. They regulate wound healing. They regulate most hormones and in the GI tract. They influence weight gain and weight loss. They directly activate pain nerve fibers. They induce pain, headaches, chronic pain, and more. Mast cells are in the body's connective tissue. Connective tissue is everywhere. It connects and supports and helps throughout your entire body. It supports your body's organs and structures. It holds your body together, and it provides the framework for, even the sac around your heart is connective tissue, and there are mast cells. So when you think that the connective tissue is everywhere and mast cells are everywhere, it can help to understand when someone is having a storm of reactions, why they're systemic, because mast cells are everywhere and they're talking to each other all the time. And they play these crucial roles in especially immune and inflammation, but in all of these areas of our body. So, and it also helps to think about things that the mast cells, their mission is to heal things and fix things and make things be in balance in the body. And that is a message that doesn't play out the way it should with the mast cell disorder. Mast cell activation, just in 4 steps. Mast cells have encountered a perceived threat or a possible danger, and they're sensitized, they're aware, and it's like, bang, they're activated. Then they degranulate, they crumble. And the degranulating mast cells pump out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mediators, of chemicals into the body, and the mediators flood the body, every system. And when the mast cell specific mediators hit the mast cell receptors, it's like the lock to the key to the lock. Those substances get in, like histamine and all the other chemicals that that are common that we hear about. They get in and they're able to interact with the body. And in the case of mast cell activation disorders, they bring on anaphylaxis and all the other storm symptoms. Emotions are closely linked to what is happening to in our bodies physically, and the responses that happen on a cellular level. And throughout this presentation, we're going to be talking about a lot about and thinking about our bodies at the cellular level. So emotions can, we're aware that emotions can raise your blood pressure, emotions can make things happen physically in our bodies, but there's also parts of the brain, the amygdala part of the brain, which is also part of your limbic system. It reacts and it's connected with mast cells, and it is especially about fear and anxiety, and it connects these emotions to our memory and to our senses, and it's about how we learn. So mast cells can't be underplayed about the impact they have on every area of our lives and on our emotional terrain, our physical, as we know, muscles, joints, everything, and how our brains function. And the connection and with mast cells, this is just profound. The language of cells, I think it's helpful to think about it that way, that because every minute, 24/7 that we're alive, our cells are in this constant communication with each other to keep our body working, to keep us functioning. It's about how we perceive listening to this right now. It's just this never-ending communication, and they have a particular way, a language that they communicate in. And all cells in the body communicate. And when cells talk to each other, it's called signaling. And they use a lot of different pathways to signal and communicate with each other. Basically, they communicate through chemical signaling and physical signaling. And this is going to be a little bit for your science geek, but this is an important part of understanding. So here's some terminology that can help so that we're all using the same understandings of things. Cytokines, some of these, you'll hear and know about. They're proteins that help control inflammation in the body. Effector cells, they're cells that actively respond to a stimuli, and they're the ones that go and make changes happen in our body. There are many different ways from cell to cell, how they communicate. A gap junction is one of them. It's a space between cells that are right next to each other so that they can directly talk to each other. Ligands are, well, good, we're going to be getting some more information to explain, but a lot of these, but you have this here. So I'm hoping that you get the PDF and you go back over it and check and reread some of the things, because some of it's coming up now. So in chemical signaling, it uses molecules to send information between cells or within a cell. The molecules that send the information are ligands. It seems like things move in three-step processes in cell communication. And this is going to be rephrased over a couple of slides, but basically there's a signal. A signal is a message. A cell releases a bunch of molecules, and those are the ligands, and they carry the message. They go to the receptor, whatever the cell is, that's the key to that particular lock. And once they do that, they then transfer the message to the cells that are going to go do something about it. That's basically it in a nutshell. And this is reframing it, but saying it in this, and again, it's a three-step process. So the reception, the cell receives a signal, which is that the message from another cell somewhere. Usually it's a ligand, which is a molecule, and it goes and floats over to the receptor, that doorway. And once the ligand binds to the receptor, it makes a change happen inside the cell. It's like, oh, here's the information. And then the final stage of the response is that information goes to usually another cell, and that cell takes care and has an action, does whatever the body needs it to do. So here it is explaining, not information only goes to particular cells. It doesn't go to every cell. So when you're looking at this messaging three-step process of cells, here it says not all cells can hear a particular message. In order to detect a signal that is to be the target cell, a neighbor cell must have the right receptor for that signal. So it really is having the right key to the right lock. So in this image where it says non-target cell, it isn't the right, those little ligands aren't the right keys for that particular lock. The thing with mast cells is mast cells are both receiving the message and they are the target cell. So there's no intermediary. They get a message and they just run and do things. That's part of why it seems like mast cell reactions happen within fractions and fractions of seconds, because it's just mast cells can take care of all of it. They do it all. So that's an interesting aspect of mast cell activation. So this is a little summing it up. Signaling is a process by which cells communicate with other cells in the body or with the external environment. The communication involves the transfer of information from one cell to another so that the cells can then coordinate their activities and respond to what's going on. And the signals are carried by molecules, the messages called ligands. And ligand signals that information, they go to the receptors on the cell membrane, and that's how they get into the cell. And the cells respond by relaying the information to the appropriate effector cells. With mast cells, they are both receiving and the effector cells. There are different ways that the message gets from one cell to the receptor, different types of signaling. A cell can release the message to itself and just admit it itself. And intracrine signaling, when it acts on receptors, but still it's within itself in the same cell. And then there's direct signaling. And this, cells can talk to each other just being physically next to each other. And they will send ligands and information just being next to each other, messages. They don't even actually have to actually touch, but they can also just touch. They can just be next to each other. And more. There's a bunch of different ways. But endocrine signaling involves hormones. And so that the messages can travel longer distances through the bloodstream instead of, still close to close, cell by cell. It's a lot of different ways that cells can talk. If you wanted in pictures, there's some of them, not all of them, but there's like the major ways of cells talking. The other way is physical signaling. Physical signaling doesn't use chemical cues. All of the things that we were just talking about, the ligands and the receptor, that part of it, those are biochemicals. Those are chemicals that are being used and sent through those molecules. Physical signaling can be mechanical force like pressure or something, temperature, light, sound. And these signals are often they're detected by receptors that convert that physical stimulus into a biochemical signal. So if you have pressure on your arm, and if cells need to do something, let's say your skin was burning, you're sitting out in the sun, and you want to move your arm away, like something needs to happen, there's a little bit of and this is so quickly, you don't really notice that this is the steps of it, but your body is made aware of a skin sensation that's a mechanical force, and it's also a temperature. And it translates that at the receptors into a biochemical signal so that then your body can use it. So it's very interesting because we know, having mast cell issues and mast cell disorders, that sound can be bothersome, that light, we can react to it, temperatures, hot or cold, we can react to them, mechanical pressure, things falling, all of these things that are happening, sometimes a day-to-day part of our lives. This is how the information is getting quickly through your body, saying mast cells with an incorrect message going, yes, 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 degranulate. There's a danger here, when really there's not a danger. But that's the process of the communication. The differences: chemical signals are molecules, physical signals are not chemicals. So it's like outside pressure, temperature, light, sound. Chemical signals detected by specific receptors that bind to the message, to the ligand. Physical signals are detected by specialized receptors, and they convert that physical stimulus information into a biochemical signal, which is like, it's a different language. And chemicals can signal and act over short distances or longer distances with its hormones traveling through the bloodstream. But physical signals are often detected locally in an area, but they can have a widespread effect over your whole body. For example, the way light affects our circadian rhythm and our circadian clock. And why does any of this matter? Is it, it's because I've just gone through this a little bit. And it matters because it's important to think and be aware that at the cellular level, there is this constant conversation going on. And the conversation begins with resilience. Resilience is the body's ability to adapt and recover from stress and adversity. It's important in understanding resilience that we understand how our body responds to danger and that we use that knowledge to support it. We need to put the concept of resilience into the context of the back and forth communication between the brain and the body via the neuroendocrine, the autonomic, the immune, the metabolic mechanisms and systems, and look at it over the course of a lifetime, the whole lifespan. So then you can think about strategies and interventions more holistically, that they're promoting brain and body health. Because sometimes our thinking tends to be like, how can I fix this? And of course we want, how do I make these reactions stop? And some of it isn't that simple, but it is, here are things that to communicate, to learn, ways of working towards bringing down the intensity of reactions. That conversation includes homeostasis, which is how the body regulates its internal systems so that they function correctly. Our bodies want everything to be in balance, and mast cells play a key role in homeostasis and maintaining balance. Homeostasis processes are automatic. A particular part of the brain and the hypothalamus run things. They're in charge of things. And homeostasis happens mainly through negative and positive feedback. And negative feedback is when your body senses a change and tries to fix it. Blood pressure, body temperature, oxygen levels. Positive feedback is when something is going on and the processes add to themselves and get stronger to help in that way return to a state of balance. Blood clotting, like if you cut yourself and you have a wound and it's not clotting quickly enough, more cells, more things will go to the site and add to themselves and get stronger to make the bleeding stop. And immune responses and inflammation responses work the same way. And if the message isn't quite right, we get these over-the-top reactions to minor fluctuations in temperature or emotion. So it's thinking about it as if there's a conversation and it's at the cellular level, and we need to actively participate in that conversation. And this is the thinking part of it, that it isn't about here are 5 steps, now we're going to retrain your brain, but this is really retraining to begin with our thinking and educating ourselves and understanding that this is how our body works. So the brain, mast cells, and plasticity. Plasticity is the ability of the cells in the body to adapt and change their properties or behaviors in response to environmental conditions. I know it's a lot of big words, but our brains can change. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability throughout life to change and adapt. It wasn't that long ago that science thought that as you got older, you lost brain cells and your intelligence went out the window. We know now that our brains are constantly rewiring and establishing new neural pathways every time that we learn and do something that's new. Neuroplasticity plays a crucial role in how the brain responds to new information, to sensory stimulation, damage, and more. And the brain can reorganize and rewire its neural connections to compensate for injuries and adapt to new skills. Mast cells also have plasticity. They can change their characteristics and traits and their functions based on their environment and the signals that they receive and the messages. They also can learn, because that's part of it, is about learning new skills and teaching new ways for these cells to respond to information and messages and what those responses are about. Cell memory is the human body. It refers to the ability of cells to literally to remember. They store and recall information, and that influences their function and how they behave within our body. So it's influencing how we feel. It's not limited to brain cells, and it extends to other parts and other cells in the body as well. Studies have shown that kidney and nerve tissue cells can form memories similar to brain cells. This indicates that memory formation might be a fundamental property of all cells. Mast cells can exhibit a form of immunological memory by altering the production of preformed mediators and thereby refining their responses to pathogens they may have previously encountered. So it's thinking about this. Mast cells remember, and they can remember for years and years and years, the cells in our body. They remember when they were exposed to a particular something that they perceived as a danger. They will remember what their response to it was, and they'll run and do it again, whether it's appropriate or not when you're dealing with MCAS and other mast cell activation issues. They can also, that's why sometimes it seems like no matter, sometimes it's problematic taking medications. And it seems like no matter what you put in your mouth, you're reacting, and the reactions are the same way. That's a lot of that can be because mast cells, oh, you're putting this kind of a thing in your mouth. This is what we do. They remember it, and they'll just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. IgE-mediated memory refers to the ability of mast cells to maintain a long-term memory of allergens, even after that allergen-specific IgE is, even when it's not bothering you, you've removed the toxin, and it doesn't matter. Mast cells, and they're going to remember. And with IgE-mediated memory, that's all about that immediate hypersensitivity reactions like anaphylaxis. And that memory can be maintained for decades after initial exposure to a trigger. So it becomes important to be able to think about, well, how can I reteach them that they need to not do this? And that's what these strategies that we're going to talk about today are about. Neural pathways are the connections between neurons where information is passed on through electrochemical signals, biochemical signals, and electrical ones. When you encounter a new thought or a new behavior, a new neural pathway starts. And the more you repeat the behavior or thought, the stronger and more dominant that neural pathway becomes. So repetition, repetition, repetition. Creating new neural pathways involves consistent practice and repetition of a new behavior or a new thought. And that's neuroplasticity, because you're directly working with your brain and your nerve end and your cells, their ability to change and to adapt. And how do you get that retraining information across to them? And it's interesting that within neuroplasticity, the pathways that you're using currently all the time, they will stay strong. And the ones that you stop using, they will over time fade away. They will be kind of lost. They'll disappear and be no more. So again, it's that repetition, repetition, repetition part of it that's so important. And creating the new neural pathways, it's important to practice a new behavior or thought under the right conditions. And that really is about having it be as lowering of the stress kind of a situation and experience as possible. Mast cell neural pathways, it's a complex process with mast cells. So mast cells are known to interact with neurons, and they can be influenced by behaviors and hormones and environmental factors. Mast cells can be triggered to enter specific regions of the brain. So that indicates that behavior can influence their presence and their type of activity in our brains and what they are impacting and the types of reactions that we have. So when you think about it, one thinks about creating new mast cell pathways. There's behavior triggers. So behaviors and activities that can stimulate the movement of mast cells, and hormones can, and the environmental factors, as we know, like diet, allergens and things we react to, toxins, environmental stressors like temperature and things like that. All of these, they have an effect on mast cells. So some of it is about avoidance, because that's a key ingredient many times, is being aware of what we need to avoid. And this is what I was talking about in a good and a positive, supportive environment to be thinking about it. It's a lot of it is our emotional environment and our internal landscape. And that really is saying that we need to step in with insight and understanding about how this mast cell processing, the cell communication works in our bodies, and actively and proactively apply some strategies to help. I know I use the phrase a lot, tools in your toolbox, but it's very important that we think about what are the tools that we have and that we can use every day, and understanding that having tools in the toolbox, it isn't just, I'm going to take one and use it, or I'm just going to take another one and that'll fix it. There is no quick fix. Oh, if there was only a quick fix. But so I thought it might help if I shared some of the things in my personal toolbox, because it's so individualized. What helps one person is not going to necessarily help another person, but we all need to have this toolbox. And sometimes when you're having a really bad moment or mast cell reaction storm, it's hard to remember to think about, oh, my toolbox. Yeah. So I write it down. I have my little list in a notebook, and I just go, it's like, okay, where's and I have it next to my medicine. But whatever strategies and supports help so that you have this as a tool that you can as a go-to every day, and know that some of these you need to implement every day, regardless, good days and the more challenging days. So the retraining strategies those are big ones on my list. Some of them, and we'll talk more about them in the following slides, that includes the vagus nerve aware breathing, making choices about sleep and meals and things like that, having that circadian clock awareness, understanding what our bodies are doing and how to work with that, and food intervention strategies, knowing what foods are mast cell stabilizers or anti-inflammatory, low histamine things that can counter reactions. For me, that includes a lot of green cabbage. But knowing what these things are for you, because sometimes if I can feel it's not a good day, it's not a good moment, I will go and I will eat some of these things because they are mast cell stabilizers and they will help to not have mast cells degranulate and not have the reactions be so intense. Also having a mast cell aware diet, just understanding that all of our choices about what we eat and how we eat and the foods that we get and how we prepare, all of that is going to impact our mast cell activity and triggering the intensity of things on a day-to-day basis. Medications are in my toolbox. They're not in everybody's toolbox because some people can't tolerate them. But it's knowing what works for you. Exercise can be another very much problematic area for a lot of people. On the one hand, exercise is a tool that can help retrain cells, but it can also be problematic because it can also be a trigger for mast cell activation. So each person needs to find their space of it. If at all, it may not be in somebody's toolbox, but exercise includes walking. It doesn't have to be like jumping up and down and this all-out exercise, because that probably wouldn't be good. That would be very triggering. But it's an area to explore and not, and also with all of this understanding that seasonally, what season is happening outside can also affect one's tolerance for anything and everything. Now, there's also the creative arts. When you're looking at strategies for retraining mast cells, and they were just talking about plasticity, something by playing an instrument, learning something new, learning an instrument, writing something new. I watch a lot of visual things and films, and I have things that I do, and it's interesting because a lot of things with the arts, the way our brains work, our brain can't tell if we're thinking of something and we're remembering it so vividly. And it could be a memory of something that happened 10 years ago. But one moment, we're just in that moment, we just remember all the details. It's like we were right there. In our brain, it doesn't differentiate between the here and now and a memory, and it thinks it's happening right now. So having that awareness of how our brains work, I use videos a lot. And I watch, and this is more than just visualizations. This is really embracing that I can process this visual information or this music information in such a way that I am giving my body at a cellular level a particular message, and it's the opposite of triggering and reacting. So there are other things that I do, especially when I'm having reactions, and I'm sharing this, maybe it'll help. I have charting, but I also mean documenting. I am a nurse, and it's when things were really bad in the very, very beginning, and not that it doesn't get bad some days now, it still does, but it was almost like an anchor for me to be able to get paper, and I would just start writing with the time, what the reaction is, and the time, and every time it changed and what the reaction is. So I was able to do that. And in this world of talking and communicating with cells and understanding, just stress is a huge factor that can bring on reactions and intensify things and make them worse. That it's a way of managing stress, to be able to pick a neutral focus and be able to learn and learn. And I was writing it down, so I have a really good idea from doing that of the arch of my reactivity. Most of the time, it helps me to anticipate what I may need in preparing for medications or for my toolbox, but everybody will have their own remedies, their own go-tos. The important thing is that you have them and you do go to them. Education has been huge, just never wanting to stop. I need to know, I want to learn. The more I understand about what is happening in my body and what's happening with the mast cells, the better I feel that I am able to figure out strategies, to try things, to make choices, and also the people in my life. It becomes important who you spend time with and what kind of an energy you surround yourself with. And because to be involved in just our own health is very draining. So it's sometimes thinking about who are the people and is it a positive refueling of your battery and your energy to spend time with them or not. And those become very important awarenesses of putting oneself first, because we need to take care of ourselves first so that we can live our lives. So strategies, exercise to retrain. I talked about it a little bit, and it is a tool. And for some people it can work. I know for me, if I haven't exercised for a while, I have to again, little by little, and it's that retrain. And the first time I started, it was like, okay, I did that for about a minute, I'm done. But I kept at it. So, and now I can do 30 minutes. I find interval training works and not high intensity. Not that I can't do it, that my mast cells don't like it when I do. So some of it is finding what can work for you. It could be just going for a walk in your home. It doesn't really have to be anything major. But that moving of the body, it really does help with stabilizing mast cells. It's finding that space where it's okay for you, and it may never be okay for you, and that's all right too. Never push yourself, and always talk about things with your doctor and that kind of thing. But because exercise can be a trigger and a potential stabilizer, and it's finding that balance. For me, I know when I exercise, I found that when I'm doing it, if I do like 30 to 45 minutes, somewhere in there, 4 days a week when I can, doesn't mean that I don't beat myself up if I can't, but it's really amazingly interesting, because I can feel like the mast cell reactions start to want to ramp up. And as long as I keep gently exercising, then it flutters away again. So, and there was a point in time at the very beginning, if I persisted, it would have been bad, but it was just little by little. And that's part of the retraining, that it's the repeat, repetition and repetition. It's like, no, this isn't a threat. This isn't a danger. We're good here. And eventually I have found in my body, not with everything, but with many things, the mast cells get it after a while. And the reactions don't 100% necessarily go away, but it comes way down. So it's not a bother. And the other part is talking to our body. When you're thinking about it, that's what we're doing. We're talking through exercise, being aware that if we can find new things as we're able to do something new that we're interested in, we can stick with, and whether it's, sometimes it can be, if it's reading something new, draw anything it's the new part and the new behavior and the new thinking that's creating a new neural pathway. And that's how you're teaching your cells, no, we're going to do this instead. So the vagus nerve breathing, that's when it's emphasizing the exhalation and also giving it a vocalization at the same time. So if you remember to do that, and with a smile on your face if you can, then every time you feel the mast cells ramping up, if you start doing that for a while, you're letting them know, because that's literally shutting down the fight flight response. So you're letting them know that everything's fine and we're good and there's no danger here. So another strong way we can talk with our bodies is through the creative arts. And I have my computer in the other room hooked up to my television set, and I have these videos. They're not real, but they're not really cartoons either. They're digital, but they are scenes by a lake, a little house, a little cup of coffee, things I can't do. I can't drink coffee, and I love coffee. and just like in a breeze, and there's a chair and there's a cat. I don't own a cat, I have a bird, but I find it very peaceful. And it's there in the room. And as I'm working at the computer and doing what I'm doing, I just throughout the day, I just look at it and I stop for a minute and I go, oh, that's so nice. Yeah, that's such a, it's just because it's peaceful. Well, this past week, the HDMI cord has died and I can't, it's not connected. And I was really surprised. And it was also funny because I was preparing this PowerPoint particularly, that I was getting really antsy and my stress level was seriously up. Just and I kept looking at the TV and it wasn't on. And even the bird is getting a little stressed. It was in it, and it's just, and you want to go, is this my imagination? Oh, I'm just reading this into it, but you're really not, because in those moments, looking at a visual that made me feel completely peaceful, my brain was like, was my reality. And so, and that's a message that was sent to not just the mast cells, but all the cells in the body. And I have been looking at that for a few years and I hadn't realized how much it helps because I just have it on all the time. So I thought I'd share that with you. But so that's about the visualization parts of it, because we usually hear about visualizations in like psychotherapy kind of contexts and all about stress, but being able to really have those images and those vivid, very, that you're completely focused on physically as well as emotionally, it absolutely impacts how our bodies are and what's happening with our mast cells. So we talked a little bit about creating new neural pathways and taking all the good things. Don't rush, it takes time, so enjoy the process. Think of positive emotions that are connected with the new habit while you're doing it. Pick a new habit, whatever you can do. Gardening can be something, it can be anything that you can do over and over and over that's new, or if some aspect of it that's new. Repeat it and repeat it until it becomes a habit. And the key here is to create a new neural pathway that'll be strong enough to turn into this like a super highway. That's where you're just going to go to. But in the beginning, it's almost as if your brain wants to fight you, because you're going to find yourself new reactions, and you just have to remember, okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. No, we're going to go here. Mast cells, when this happens, we're going to go here. So some of it is also thinking about and really visualizing how you want that optimal outcome to be, what it looks like and feels like, and how it's going to feel to bring the reactions down. And focus on the good for 10 or 20 seconds, really absorbing and storing the experience in your long-term memory. I have mentioned the vagus nerve informed breathing. The vagus nerves, cranial nerves, there are 12 pairs. Vagus, they're all, that means they're in direct communication with your brain instead of going through your spine and then to your brain. And the vagus nerves are in charge of turning on and shutting down the body's fight, flight, freeze response. So the breathing that you do when you inhale, and it makes sense because I think I've mentioned this in other spaces, that if you picture, 10,000 years ago and you're being chased by that saber-toothed tiger and you're running and running and running through the jungle, and you get away and you're like in a cave and you're safe, you're going, ah, ah, ah. So vagus, that's telling your body through your vagus nerve, there's no danger, you can show. And so it's emphasizing the exhale and you're giving a vocalization. You're going, ha, ha. So that's what that means, literally that. And also, there are other cranial nerves in your face. So when we move our muscles in the shape that's a smile, we are through those facial muscles directly telling our brain everything's fine, everything's good, we're happy. So you're reinforcing the opposite message of the fight flight and to shut down the fight flight. And the thing with that is repetition, repetition, repetition. It may in the beginning seem like it's not making a difference, but it does. You're just going to keep at it. So that's the vagus nerve informed breathing, basic technique. And that's everything that we're going to talk about today. That says breathe and smile. It's a little Thich Nhat Hanh quote there. I like Thich Nhat Hanh. So I'm going to stop the recording.